Hi everyone. Our next session is combating cyber attacks. With separate workstations comes the risk of data security and employee disloyalty. To prevent and monitor data system outside of a secure place is one of the biggest challenges. This session takes a look at what companies have opted for and if it has worked out for them or not. We have the session leader here, Mr. Jaspreet Singh, Cybersecurity Partner, EY India. Session speaker, Archie Jackson, Senior Director, Head IT, Incedo, Andrew McNeile, Chief Customer Officer, Thinscale. I'll hand it over to you, Jaspreet.
Thank you, Shalini. And thank you for giving us this chance to be part of such a prestigious event. And to top it all, I don't know, Andrew, might be a little bit surprise for you. Today in India, we celebrate the National Data Privacy Day. So what better than what better than talking about cybersecurity and privacy and with what's going on around the world on WhatsApp versus Signal versus Telegram versus so many other things, right? What better what better thing than to talk on the various cyber initiatives, right? Before I come to both of you for a short introduction, right? It's very interesting times that we live in, right? I've been hearing excellent sessions, the one in the HR, the previous one around the entire digital piece, and everybody said that we're not coming back to office. We were looking at a hybrid model, and when we talk about hybrid model, I'm sure both of you would agree that security is a concern, right? It's not as safe as you're in office. You're behind enterprise architecture, wide firewalls, etc., right? And then what about things around data privacy, able to click photographs, take printouts at home, The list is endless, right? And it's not that we were prepared for such a prolonged period of work from home, right? The virus took, let's be honest, the entire world by surprise, right? We did not know the magnitude at which it's going to hit us. So when you got the invite to such a conference and then you looked at the agenda and you looked at the theme saying making work from home better, what were the first thoughts from a security perspective that came to you? Andrew, while you can start with this, I would request you to do a quick introduction of yourself, and Archie, you also, please.
Yeah. So my name is Andrew McNeile. I'm Chief Customer Officer of Thinscale. I'm delighted to be here with you, Jaspreet. And no, I didn't know it was Data Privacy Day in India, and I quite agree with you. What a perfect day to be discussing it. I've had a 30-year career in information technology, 10 years of that with Dell Computers in Europe, mostly running the UK sales and then European operations, which was a fabulous period of growth for the company. Thinscale as a company provides the technology that powers the endpoint security for the world's largest BPOs in order to provide secure work from home, bring your own device. So they in turn have to serve the customers like the governments, healthcare companies, and banks around the world. So that's kind of our focus. And I think, Jaspreet, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, absolutely, the big thing that all of our customers, so the CIO of one of our biggest customers was saying, Andrew, what our thought was if something hit, it would hit, say, in one country. Let's say there was a big natural disaster in the Philippines. Then I could spin up loads of people in America or somewhere like that. We had never anticipated an event that would be global, where all our 300,000 employees had to suddenly go work at home, nor had we anticipated it would endure so long. Equally, friends of mine who still run Dell's global operations, I think they were surprised when it happened first in China that actually productivity didn't decline. There was an expectation, I think, from everybody that everybody going to work at home, productivity was going to decline. But I think the biggest thing that people haven't properly addressed is the whole issue of security. And I think one of the things that I reflect on, Jaspreet, is that people are still have become a little bit too casual, and too many people have got computers and systems and things operating from home which are inadequately secured. My fear is, I think, that it's going to take something like the 2017 WannaCry virus, where 300,000 computers were affected worldwide, something of that sort of global impact, in order for people to kind of wake up and say, I've got to take action.
Super. Andrew, I just hope that I know I spent a couple of sleepless nights because WannaCry happened on a Friday evening at about 9 p.m. UK time. It was way past midnight in India. Yeah, exactly. So I remember that day. Yeah, I hope so not. And
I got a call. I got a call from one of the Europe's largest telecommunications companies who was attacked by it, and very publicly attacked by it, and they had to get an email out to all 150,000 employees, and I was about to do some work on the system, and I was going to shut the system down. So he was begging me to keep it open so that he could communicate with his employees to stop them logging into the systems.
Perfect. And you mentioned the entire piece around the risks. Nobody could envisage this risk to hit globally. One of the risk reports that I follow very religiously is the World Economic Forum report.
Mm-hmm.
Organization should be ready for. Believe me, 2019, the risk of a pandemic hitting more than 10 countries at a time was at number 8. Right. 2020, we have more than 150 countries affected at the same time. So, that's how unprepared we were. But thank you. Some very insightful pieces around the endpoint security. When you're working from home, obviously the challenges are increased. And next 30 minutes, we'll definitely go into that. Andrew, your thoughts, please. You can introduce yourself, Archie, and then start with your thoughts. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Jaspreet. First of all, really delighted to have a discussion along with you because we come a long way. I'm Archie Jackson. I'm head of IT and security at Incedo. It's a global firm where I take care of IT and security end to end from India as well as US different sites, global deliveries end to end. Prior to that, I have been with Genpact for some time into security and been into other organizations. I served 7 years at NHS. So while you were talking about WannaCry, so that reminded me a lot of interesting stuff. So 7 years at NHS and also worked with DXC and other organizations. 20 years of IT and security experience into all kind of verticals and sectors. And to
thank you, Archie. Your thoughts. Well, being in an organization from an ITS perspective yourself, serving clients. 10th of March, India announces that from 25th types we'll go into a lockdown. People will work from home, and one of the largest ITS companies in India, the CISO is a very close friend. He told me he literally had to book auto rickshaws to or 3-wheelers to ship desktops home to their agents. I just hope you didn't do the same thing.
Absolutely. So somewhat, I would say somewhat, because it has been really a kind of a VUCA situation. So volatility, uncertainty, complex and ambiguous. So as we progress into our years or next day, it's completely unprecedented and uncommon, things like that. So readiness, I would not say that we were completely ready and fully equipped to handle such situations. But yes, we were somewhat in a good shape because the postures, the planning, and some of the implementations that we have been doing over the past period had enabled that switch over. So, I mean, they have been, instead of desktops, from our situation, it was laptops. So we ensured those laptops are delivered. So having collaboration with those courier and logistical partners, so that was also a challenge at that point in time. Gradually, at this point in time, the onboarding is quite seamless. So it goes as a delivery to the individual at their home, because we are completely 100% operating out of home. And from security standpoint, I would say legacy, when gone are the days when we were at Windows 3.1 or Windows 97, we had an option to install an antivirus. Today, it's even antivirus couldn't defend such kind of threats that are there out in the environment, because the bad guys are getting smarter day by day, and businesses transformation, everything has been moving into a digital manner. So any business which is not having a digital transformation strategy would, from where I see, would have a very strong competition for survival at some point in time, today or in near future, because of which security plays a very, very strong and important role, because earlier it was an enabler. Now business is riding security. And with riding of the security, it's by design. Every component, say it be manufacturing, healthcare, finances, telecom, real estate, or even hospitality, every aspect is digitized, and technology and security comes as a rider for the business. And compliance, and quickly summarizing for the next question. So one of the important aspects is, from the expectation standpoint and the way digital transformation is happening, security should not be in a restrictive mode. It should be in a more of a monitoring mode and enabler mode. So because no matter how well you guard your fortress, there would be somewhere or the other, there would be backdoors. And today, with the zero signatures and all those threats which are APTs and which couldn't be identified unless and until it's integrated with some or the other technology aspects. So that's a very important aspect where monitoring comes as a very key player to survive and sustain.
Superb, excellent. I think monitor, survive, and sustain. These are the three words. I think if I were to define three words that would help us in 2021, I would probably sustain is the word that we're looking for. And you mentioned this in your introduction around the endpoints piece, right? With the gap between home and office now non-existent, right? And all our fellow panelists in the previous sessions spoke about this being the new normal, the hybrid model, right? Being such a key person from a cybersecurity perspective, what would you advise clients if they want to continue doing this? Top 4-5 things that they should implement from a cybersecurity perspective, right? And it's also not about implementation only, right? Buying tools probably is the easiest thing, but if you were to lay out 5 top advices, what would it be?
I think what has happened is, if you go to any sort of cybersecurity analysts, what they will advise you is that at every layer of your stack, from the data through the automation through the API, you should be really focused at security at every single layer, right out to the endpoint. But the reality is that most organizations are network centric. They're looking from the center out and not the edge in. The net result of that is that the center has actually become very well protected. And the problem is inadequate thought is being given to the most vulnerable part of the network, which is the edge. So I think the first point I would make is that one company should put a lot of focus in understanding and properly securing the endpoints. As you, Jaspreet, in our earlier discussions, you rightly, and in that conversation there, you rightly point out this is the growing vector of attack. There are many more places, and in fact, this is where people get in. And in fact, about 85% and this is where my first point of advice would come from, 85% of all cyber attacks could be prevented by ensuring that the operating system and applications are properly patched and up to date, the anti-spyware is up to date, the antivirus is up to date. So a system that is clearly ensuring patching and OS systems are up to date is a key aspect of it. Ransomware attacks all traditionally begin with some kind of keyloggers, where code is injected onto the machine and data is collected from the machine, both in terms of data leakage, and it can get malicious information as well as corrupt the system. So prevention of keyloggers on the endpoint is a key component for people to be thinking about, making sure those endpoints don't allow keyloggers to run, so that VDI credentials, which might make you think you're safe, is not being stolen. So I think it's don't be overly network centric, because otherwise key issue data leakage, so credit card and confidential corporate information can go missing, all of these things. So the keylogger prevention is the top thing. Our customers are the big BPOs of the world who are facilitating this for other customers. TP, who's Teleperformance, our largest customer, has got 340,000 employees and 80,000 of them in India. So I think what our customers are doing, our BPO customers like TP, number one, see the remote employee as the most vulnerable point. And making sure data leakage prevention is there, making sure that proper cybersecurity measures are in place on the endpoint. I think the other aspect of it is training. Most of it comes from employees at the vulnerable point. There's been a 600% increase in phishing scams, and they've become a lot more elaborate because that is the place that people want to get in. And overseeing and training staff can make a real help in making the endpoint points a lot more secure. I think in part, Jaspreet, it's a bit like the famous story of the two men out in the woods when they see a bear, and one of them stops and starts putting his running shoes on, and the other turns to him and says, "Why are you putting your running shoes on? That we can't outrun the bear." And the guy says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I've just got to run faster than you."
Yeah, I tell a lot of my friends the same story. So thanks for that, Andrew. And while I come to you, Archie, I'm sorry, you mentioned things around patching, around DLP, right? And making sure that your versions are up to date. This is pretty basic stuff. And then that's where I move to Archie, right? Especially in India, Archie, you would have seen a spate of ransomware attacks, I think. And this is one major company a month reporting ransomware attack. So how many are not reporting? Let's not go there, right? How do you think is your organization putting in steps, right? Like Andrew said, you look at a remote employee to be the most vulnerable employee, you do a risk assessment kind of thing, and you put some basic checks in place. What have you done to make sure that, you can protect your organization from a ransomware attack? Because I think that, at least in my knowledge, that's the most common kind of attack that's happening across India, maybe globally.
Absolutely, Jaspreet. Thanks. Very interesting question here, because somewhere around April to June, we observed a very huge spike of incoming ransomware attacks, which were detected and blocked. Again, towards November, December, January, again, there is a spike, probably because of the holiday season and extended new COVID situation. So a lot of phishing, from the basic steps, Andrew very nicely articulated few steps, which should be the basic hygiene from DLP, trainings, endpoints, security, all of that. In addition to that, what we at Incedo ensured, from the EDR standpoint, let's say I don't exactly remember the number of hours or the days, It actually takes 250 plus days for any threat to be detected. That's there in some I read it somewhere. So
Gartner says 200 plus days. Yeah.
Yeah. So from 200 days of a threat to be detected, we are completely clueless of the harm it has already done. So the impact is, so from the reduction of time frame of the detection, that's where EDR comes into place. So from the detection, and now we have XDRs and all those different technologies which are looking into the threat intelligence and user behavioral analytics and all of that, which would predict, because from ransomware, people, or in fact employees, it's quite difficult for us to understand what exactly ransomware is. It's a simple malware, and it has a feature, it has a functionality which would block and encrypt the system. So a malware, a ransomware can move come in through either phishing or through some websites. So all those weak points of detections, or I would say weak points where there could be some inflow of such malware, those are monitored with some state-of-art tools, cutting-edge tools from EDR, and also having a kind of a web gateways which have better insight, content filtering, all of that. Plus, we moved into a SASE framework, which actually helped us a lot early in February and March. So we are in a SASE architecture where we are looking at a zero trust approach. So from that zero trust approach, it has really helped us mitigate not only ransomware, but other severe malwares as well. However, in addition to that, as we detect a malware, the kind of approach that we follow is do a detailed forensic. We established a group of team members which go into deep dive analysis of any detection that is blocked, because it may or may not be a detection. I mean, we might be shooting a patient, but the infection may still be there. So from that forensic standpoint, we go through a deep dive analytical observation, forensic, and then mitigate and even scan and review those other servers and access that have been in a historical manner might be infected with ransomware or any other malware. So from technology standpoint, from approach standpoint, it's both blended. So having a right approach from a very starting point and then closing out with a forensic and detailed analysis, plus having the right tools or right architecture. So from SASE, Zero Trust, EDRs, in addition to the standard controls that an organization has.
Thank you, Archie. From UBA to SASE to control-based frameworks, how much is too much? Before I move to Andrew, I just wanted to understand, Andrew. We've been speaking about some of these buzzwords. Like also any meeting that I go to, any board meeting I go to, I hear words like AI, ML, RPA, cognitive computing, so on, quantum computing, so on and so forth, right? And from your view perspective, right, being in a customer-facing role, talking to technologists day in and day out, right? Do you think some of these technologies would act as an enabler, or would act as a deterrent to the entire? Would it increase our attack surface?
I think, well, it was interesting. I was talking to CIO yesterday evening of one of our biggest customers, and we were discussing what technologies he was looking to apply over the next 2 or 3 years in all of that sort of acronym soup that is getting out there. And I think it was interesting. He was really focused on what are the ones that are really going to shift the dial in terms of serving our customers. And I think that we're really only I think a lot of them he felt were slightly overhyped in their capacity to deliver. And I think perhaps just to return a little bit to your previous point, Jaspreet, I think whereas some of the bits and pieces I was saying were quite simplistic in terms of things that need to be done, it's amazing to me how many companies aren't doing them. And actually what our technology does is provide that sort of security at the end point to do things like service execution prevention, application execution prevention, and so it's making sure you do have a technology on the endpoint that is properly blocking it. That is a key thing for people to do. But back to your question, is the application of those technologies going to increase? I think every time you introduce complexity, you're going to potentially introduce attack vectors. And if you look at the way in which certain tool sets have been stolen from companies like FireEye and SolarWinds, then potentially those tools are going to be turned against them. And that is the sort of posture of some of the bad actors, to use tool sets from advanced tools in order to find a way into the system.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting, right? On some of the tools some of the advanced tools being used itself to launch attacks, and I think I totally agree. That's maybe a little worrying state where we are headed to.
Yes, and in fact, what I've seen is when we get our security systems penetration tested, and we get people to deliberately trying to hack into our own systems, one of their approaches, one of their styles and methods of trying to do it is to use our own tools against us. So where we update our system, they try and hijack our updating system, inject malicious code and dump it into the system. So we have to build extra security into our own system to make sure that we're talking to ourselves.
Oh, talking to ourselves. I'll remember that for a long time, Andrew. Thanks for that. Actually, we've discussed about tools. We started with tools. 35 minutes into this, we're still on tools. I just wanted to spend next 2-3 minutes on the human element, right? It is still, you can put 10 layers of tools before me. And if you send me an email which I'm not supposed to click on, a phished email, something regarding my income tax returns, giving me free, million Nigerian dollars, etc. If I still click on that link, boom, it's gone, right? What are some of the steps from an end user perspective, right? Because in your role as a senior director, information security, what are some of the things that you do to elevate the user awareness piece? And do you think it is critical? These were my thoughts, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, there are tools to encourage the awareness as well as knowledge and skill sets. There are so many tools out there in the market, but the human element, you're spot on. How to actually, we can send out simple mailers, or we can send out some trainings and all, or conduct trainings. However, the importance from where I see and what I've been driving in our organization is having a visibility and understanding of social engineering. Instead of looking at the aspect of security and privacy, the kind of briefing, the videos and knowledge sharing, the trainings, whatever that happens, it is on a very basic platform of social engineering, which would cultivate the thought process of curiosity, greed, fear, trust, all of those aspects, and then help us link with the risk and impact. So the sessions, there are training sessions which are designed, there are mailers which are floated. On top of that, we also have an in-house tool that we design, our team designed that, a phishing simulator, which periodically we send across on very specific occasions around Diwali, Christmas, New Year's, and then construct that with the learning and development team to have a constructive roadmap for all those who opened those emails and then those who opened and even clicked specific links. So it goes from any level from 0 to top. All of those levels receive such phishing simulated emails, and then basis on that we work out with the development of, in fact, learning and awareness approach. However, there's still, I would say this couldn't be 100% made secure, because somewhere or the other, because organizations which are dealing into codes, Git repositories, cloud, all of those. So all of those aspects also plays a very important role, not only from phishing aspect, but from a development standpoint. So DevOps organizations which are into DevOps, those need to have a very blended DevSecOps where security blends with the development, so that developers also have the understanding of where to integrate and be logical around what access is granted to a specific application, which would call out some information from another.
Right. I think you made a very significant point. I think, and that's where, I'm seeing a trend. It's still a very small trend. You spoke about DevSecOps. People call it privacy by design, security by design. A lot of places I'm seeing that now the CISO is actually getting a seat on the board table. And because the CISO and the CIO are actually not just the enablers, but they have the responsibility to make sure on whatever new applications are being integrated, whatever new businesses are being bought, security is a very, very important component of the entire pieces. Thank you so much for that, Archie. That was really, really quite enlightening. Andrew, closing remarks. If you were to sum up one thing that you would tell your client to do immediately, right, in the next 30 days, one thing you would want the client to do in the next 30 to 90 days, and something which the client can probably do after 90 days. I call it now, next, and beyond.
Yeah, so I think it's do a proper understanding of what is the endpoints, what have you got there, what kind of state are they in, how frequently is your patching and systems working, are they being kept up to date? And then after 90 days, make sure you've got the tools, systems, and processes in place to ensure the endpoints are properly secured.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Andrew. Archie, one message you would want to give all your employees?
Not only all our employees, but every CISO, every technology or security professional, something is what I've observed and as a missing block is the understanding between what we, as a vendor governance, something around third party. Whenever we have a third party engaged, we may have a very strong posture of security, risk, impact, and everything. However, when we engage with any third party, similar to, let's say, SolarWind, there are 425 out of 500 organizations Fortune 500 organizations have been using SolarWind. What impact it is, let's say Microsoft, there may be a data which is our data with Microsoft, which have been monitored for a very lengthy period, and it might get compromised through a third party or a fourth party. So that level of insight, visibility, or even assurance around those, we should focus onto it. Plus, as much as possible, encourage and expand the scope of social engineering and understanding around it. That would make somewhat difference.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Archie. That's it from our side. It was really a pleasure speaking to both of you and moderating this esteemed conference. Back to you, Shalini.
Lovely. Thank you, Jaspreet.
Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. I think this was again, very informative session. And again, thank you so much for your time. We're actually running quite late. I'll quickly jump on to the next session if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much.